If someone had said 20 years ago that some of the major icons on the Las Vegas Strip could face closure, most of us would have considered it science fiction. At that time, Las Vegas was a non-stop money-making machine. Tourists flocked there year-round, casinos were packed 24/7, and giant hotels seemed immune to all economic fluctuations. But the reality of this year tells a very different story, as many casinos once considered the pillars of the Strip are now quietly struggling to stay afloat. According to a Vegas insider with deep industry connections, a list of casinos allegedly teetering on the brink of bankruptcy has caused concern among investors, internal employees, and financial analysts. Prolonged revenue decline, escalating operating costs, the burden of debt from ambitious expansion deals, and a noticeable shift in tourist entertainment habits are converging into a dangerous breaking point, where even names once considered untouchable are no longer immune to risk. In today's video, we'll delve into that leaked list, examining the names under the most pressure and explaining why icons once considered untouchable could become the next candidates to close on the Las Vegas Strip. There are casinos that don't disappear due to losses. They left Las Vegas when the system no longer accepted stability as a sufficiently valuable virtue. To put it more bluntly, they were deliberately strangled, not by the market, but by how the industry has changed. The Mirage is such a case. The Mirage opened in 1989, and in many historical documents as well as local press, it is often considered a landmark that ushered in the era of mega-resorts in Las Vegas. At that time, almost no casino on the Strip could compare in size and grandeur. The waterfall cascaded down in front, golden glass surfaces reflected the desert. A giant volcano erupted every night like a familiar ritual, and the white tigers of Siegfried and Roy. All of this created something that was not just a casino, but the way Vegas wanted to be seen. For over 3 decades of operation, the Mirage has been considered a stable and profitable asset. It caters well to the middle class, families, and adults who return to Las Vegas out of habit, not seeking extreme thrills, but rather a familiar and accessible experience. It's no exaggeration to say that Mirage's resort entertainment model helped change the way the Strip operates, transforming Las Vegas from a gambling town into a global entertainment destination. At its peak, Mirage generated cash flow so quickly and steadily that it was often compared to a mint. However, things gradually reversed as the casino industry entered a period of strong financialization, and long-term stability was no longer a priority criterion. In 2022, the Mirage was sold to Hard Rock International for approximately $0.1 billion. From that moment on, the Mirage was no longer seen as a symbol to be preserved, but as a piece of land awaiting a sentence of decline. Vegas during the business era had a very bad habit. They bought legendary resorts, dismantled them piece by piece, and rebuilt something modern and efficient, but increasingly soulless, more like a hospital waiting room than a place of recreation. The Mirage volcano was marked for demolition because it was inconsistent with brand identity. The Polynesian Paradise theme was considered too expensive to maintain. The tigers that had defined the magic of Vegas for 30 years were ultimately no longer appealing enough on Excel spreadsheets. Before the official closure announcement was made, Mirage showed familiar signs of a planned retreat. Areas are fenced off for renovation, but there is no completion date. The restaurant closed silently. The hotel wings turned off their lights one by one. When the Mirage officially closes on July 17, 2024, in preparation for the new project, half of the property will resemble a ghost town. The Mirage did not close due to financial bankruptcy. The decision to close stems from a redevelopment strategy and expectations of higher profits in the future. But whatever the reason, the consequences left a lingering sense of unease, not only for the resort, but also for the workers and guests there. thousands of workers in the service, entertainment, and operations industries were forced to change jobs or leave the industry. Regular customers, especially adults and seniors, are losing a space associated with decades of memories and consumption habits. Mirage is perhaps proof that modern Vegas no longer values what once made it special, if those things are no longer financially optimal. And if an icon that once defined modern Las Vegas can be removed so methodically, the question is, how will casinos without the brand and location advantages of the Mirage survive? Tropicana left Las Vegas in a meeting where the lines on the planning map carried more weight than decades of accumulated memories. This isn't a story about loss. This is a story about giving way. Tropicana opened in 1957, earlier than most casinos on the Las Vegas Strip. It has survived through many economic cycles, many generations of owners, and many times the industry has redefined itself. If we consider only its age, Tropicana should be in the group of untouchable places. In the Vegas ecosystem, the Tropicana has never been the most glamorous casino, nor the biggest money-making machine. Its value lies elsewhere. Tropicana caters to a middle-class clientele, seniors, and those seeking a pleasant, familiar Las Vegas experience that isn't too overwhelming. For many travelers, this is a familiar stop, not particularly impressive, but friendly enough to return to. It's that very just enough quality that makes Tropicana easily replaceable. Because the greatest value of Tropicana lies not in its casino or hotel, but beneath its foundation. The land at the intersection of Tropicana Avenue and Las Vegas Boulevard is considered one of the last strategic locations on the Strip, large enough for major development projects. In that picture, the casino is just one land use among many options. Tropicana's turning point didn't come from the market, but from policy. In the 2023 to 2024 period, the state of Nevada approved a significant public support package for the Oakland A's MLB baseball stadium project. Tropicana, as an old resort, became the part that needed to be demolished to make way for a different development model. This decision is legal, transparent, and presented as a step toward the long-term future of the city. The important thing is that Tropicana is not considered unprofitable. It is considered not the most optimal land use. Here, it's not casino spreadsheets that dominate, but real estate and sports spreadsheets. The comparison isn't between two casinos, but between an old resort and a new urban project. Tropicana also sparked a debate characteristic of modern Las Vegas. Using public money to support large private projects isn't new, but each iteration raises familiar questions. Not everyone opposes the football field or development, but many people still wonder, who is the city being built for and who has to leave to make way? This resort also marks a new era for the Las Vegas Strip. The casino is no longer the ultimate goal. They exist as long as they are consistent with the urban development strategy. History, in this case, is not considered a burden, but it is also not valuable enough to be retained if it hinders other priorities. There's a paradox happening right on the Las Vegas Strip. One of the city's busiest resorts has become a prime example of the fewer people, more money strategy. The Venetian is not empty, not run down, and certainly not lacking in visitors. But the way it exists today is very different from the original role for which it was created. The Venetian was born as Las Vegas entered a period of lavish expansion in the early 2000s. This is the era where casinos are not only competing with gaming tables, but also with scale, theme, and overall experience. The Venetian was built as a lavish replica of Venice, aimed at a mass experience: shopping, dining, entertainment, casinos, all within a space that makes visitors feel they are going further than they actually are. For many years, Venice has been a symbol of that thinking. It attracts not only gamblers, but also tourists who come to Vegas to stroll, see shows, shop, and stay for extended periods. This model is based on the majority: many people, many experiences, long stays, and evenly distributed spending. The turning point came in 2022, when the Venetian Palazzo was sold to financial investment groups Apollo and VC for over $6 billion. This is one of the largest deals in the history of the Las Vegas Strip, and also a milestone for a different approach to the same property. The Venetian hasn't changed its theme or architecture, but it has gradually changed its operations. After the deal, Venetian's operating model shifted significantly toward cost optimization and focusing on high-spending customers. According to data from the Nevada Gaming Control Board, average spending per guest tends to increase, while the total number of guests does not increase proportionally. This reflects a familiar strategy in the investment world: reducing dependence on the masses and increasing revenue per visitor. This change is not always widely publicized. This is reflected in smaller things: tighter seasonal operations, some areas closing on a rotating basis, and services being streamlined to align with the new cost structure. This is not a sign of crisis, but a manifestation of financialization, where experiences are adjusted to serve clearer profit objectives. Importantly, this does not mean Venice is nearing bankruptcy. On the contrary, it shows that Venetian is surviving very well by investors' standards. But that survival comes with a trade-off. The public casino model, where anyone can enter and feel like they belong, is being deliberately narrowed. There are casinos that don't disappear, but also don't really move forward. When a resort has to borrow a legendary name to remind itself of who it once was, it's often a sign that the problems run deeper than the surface. Bally's, later Horseshoe, is a prime example of that in-between state. For many years, Bally's was a large-scale casino located in the heart of the Las Vegas Strip. It lacks neither traffic nor history and has never been considered a small asset. However, persistent difficulties with infrastructure and experience have caused Bally's to gradually lose its advantage compared to newer resorts that are consistently upgraded and have integrated infrastructure. Changing the name to Horseshoe was not a random move. Horseshoe is one of the brands synonymous with the history of gambling in the United States, representing an era when casinos were defined by gaming tables and reputation rather than architectural scale. When this name was brought back to the Strip, the expectation was that the brand's legacy could help regain customer sentiment and trust. But reality shows that a name alone cannot solve structural problems. Tourism surveys and customer feedback after the name change did not show a significant improvement in satisfaction levels. The experienced guests have still revolves around the same old limitations: outdated spaces, inconsistent amenities, and a feeling of being left behind in an increasingly competitive Strip. The core issue isn't with the brand, but with the operational model. Bally's, or Horseshoe, has outdated facilities, while investment in upgrades is limited. In an environment where new casinos are constantly expanding and redefining standards, just changing the name becomes a temporary solution rather than a long-term strategy. This puts Bally's Horseshoe in a particularly vulnerable state. It's not attractive enough to be a major investment priority, but it's also not bad enough to be shut down immediately. Such intermediate assets are often the highest risk group because they are easily delayed, prolonged, and silently lose competitiveness over time. There are names that just need to be mentioned to evoke an entire era. But in modern Las Vegas, memories can bring back emotions, not necessarily bring back the crowds. The Sahara is a clear demonstration of that limit. The Sahara was once an icon on the north end of the Las Vegas Strip, associated with the big stars of the Golden Age. For decades, the name Sahara has represented a classic Vegas, a place of entertainment associated with personality, music, and familiar faces, not just scale and bright lights. For many adults and seniors, the Sahara is not just a casino, but a part of the memory of how Las Vegas used to operate. As this industry changes, the Sahara is not standing still. Over the years, this resort has undergone multiple name changes, ownership changes, and repositionings. Each time it returns, Sahara brings with it an effort to revitalize its image, relying heavily on nostalgia, a reminder of how significant it once was in the history of the Strip. Investments are being poured into design, branding, and experience, with the expectation that memories can be a driving force to bring customers back. However, accommodation data reveals a less romantic reality. The North Strip area is recovering significantly slower than the central area, which concentrates the majority of tourist traffic. The problem with the Sahara isn't a lack of brand recognition, but rather its location, the flow of people, and the surrounding ecosystem. In a city where experiences are increasingly built in a linked sequence, walking, shopping, and entertainment following one another, being out of sync with the main flow becomes a significant disadvantage. This isn't a story about a failed casino, but a casino caught between two eras. The Sahara is not lacking in history, nor is it lacking in effort. But in Las Vegas today, that doesn't guarantee a sustainable stream of customers. And when nostalgia is no longer enough to keep visitors coming, the next question isn't what the Sahara used to be, but whether similar casinos can escape the cycle of high costs and low traffic. Or will they continue to rely on memories to compensate for a changing reality? Nevada's tallest tower is still making good money, but the casino located right at its base no longer holds a central role. The Strat exists in such a paradox. For many years now, the Strat has no longer been defined primarily by gambling activity. What keeps visitors here are the high-altitude observation deck, outdoor adventure activities, and a restaurant system with panoramic city views. Admission tickets, thrill rides, and dining services have become more predictable and less volatile revenue sources compared to traditional casinos. According to industry reports, the proportion of revenue from gambling at the Strat is significantly lower compared to many other casinos on the Las Vegas Strip. This reflects a strategic choice. Instead of competing head-on in an increasingly fierce casino market, the Strat leverages its unique advantage, its height, and the experience that cannot be replicated elsewhere. This model helps the Strat maintain cash flow and continue its presence on the Strip, even when gambling revenue is no longer the primary driver. But the price to pay is that the casino gradually became a secondary part of the complex itself. Gambling is no longer the heart of operations, but merely one of many service categories. As casinos lose their central role, the nature of a Vegas casino begins to change. Play floor space is becoming less of a priority in the allocation of investment, personnel, and experience. Major improvements often go upwards, where visitors pay for the view and the feeling, rather than focusing on the casino floor below. And as this model becomes more popular, the question is not only for the Strat. What will happen to casinos that don't have a tower or a unique experience to transform? When gambling is no longer the primary driver, where will assets that haven't adapted in time find their place in the Las Vegas of the future? There was a time when Fremont Street was considered the heart of Las Vegas. It's not because it's the most glamorous, but because it's the most familiar. Back then, people came to Fremont to play low-stakes blackjack, to see familiar faces with each trip, and to feel like they belonged to a community rather than being a tourist product. Fremont was once known for its accessible gaming tables and a loyal customer base that returned year after year. For many adults and seniors, this is a place where they understand the rules of the game, understand the space, and don't feel pushed out by the ostentation. Fremont is the real Vegas, simple, just loud enough, and doesn't need to impress. In recent years, Fremont Street has undergone a noticeable process of repositioning. This area has been redesigned to attract younger visitors, focusing on visual experiences, large-scale light and music, and spaces designed for filming. Fremont is no longer just a place to play. It has become a stage where everything is directed toward the lens. That change brought about a positive short-term result. Average visitor spending increased, and Fremont became a vibrant social media destination. But tourism surveys also noted a parallel trend. The rate of returning visitors did not increase proportionally. Many people come once to experience it, take photos, and then leave without a clear reason to return. For old players, this change creates a sense of unfamiliarity. Prices increased, the atmosphere changed, and the new pace of life made them feel like they were no longer a priority. It's not that they oppose the new, but that they no longer recognize the place they were once familiar with. Fremont, in their eyes, had become another version of himself. Fremont isn't the Vegas it used to be. It's becoming a Vegas designed to be seen, rather than to stay in. And when that happens, the question isn't just for Fremont, but for the whole city. Can Las Vegas continue to grow without losing the communities that once made up its soul? After all the stories we've just been through, there's one thing that needs to be made clear. Las Vegas won't lose customers just because it's become more expensive. Many expensive destinations around the world are still crowded. The problem with Vegas lies elsewhere. The feeling of being respected gradually disappears. When people enter an entertainment venue and feel they are being measured, optimized, and treated as a variable in a spreadsheet, the relationship between the city and its visitors begins to fray. For many years, Las Vegas operated on an unspoken agreement. Guests accept the risk and are willing to spend in return for feeling welcome, being able to play, and staying in a space that isn't too strict on their wallets or time. When optimizing short-term finances becomes the top priority, that agreement gradually breaks down. Revenue may improve in the short term, but trust and memories, the things that keep customers coming back, are eroded in ways that are difficult to measure. Once entertainment starts causing stress, people will leave. Not in anger, but in silence. When every decision is accompanied by a feeling of being pressured to spend, scrutinized, and charged fees without clear understanding, a trip intended for relaxation becomes a new source of stress. And at that point, tourists didn't need to be convinced to leave Vegas. They found their own reasons not to return. The important thing is that consumers don't want Las Vegas to go back in time. They are not asking casinos to revert to the old model or give up profits. What they desire is much simpler, not to be seen as a cost to be squeezed dry. They accept trade-offs, but they don't accept feeling exploited. In a world of increasing choices, that feeling is enough to make them go in a different direction. The lessons from Vegas aren't just for casinos. It's for any industry that puts profit before human experience. When a system forgets why customers came in the first place, their departure is quiet, undramatic, but irreversible. And perhaps that's what's most concerning. Las Vegas might still be lit up. The numbers may still be reported as stable or even growing. But what we just saw shows something else. This city is changing in a way that not everyone can keep up with. Casinos that disappear from the map are not always the most unprofitable places. They are places that no longer have a clear reason for existing in human life, where memories, habits, and feelings that were once respected are no longer considered assets. Vegas didn't disappear in a big crash. It changed little by little, silently, through decisions that sounded very reasonable on paper, but left gaps that were difficult to fill in real-life experiences. If you find this video helps you see Las Vegas more clearly, not to judge, but to understand, please hit like to support the team that made it. If you're interested in the stories behind the numbers, don't forget to subscribe to follow the next analyzers. This video is based on mainstream media sources, public data, and industry trend analysis. All statements in the video are for analysis and commentary purposes only, and are not intended to predict the certain financial outcomes or fate of any casino. Business conditions can change over time, depending on policies and the economic context. This video is not investment advice, nor does it represent the views of any organization or company mentioned. Our goal is not to create fear, but to help viewers better understand the trade-offs that are happening, so that each person can make choices that are right for them.